Ooh, you can hear the thing, and I should do something there about that. Let's mute the. There we go. Fuck. I was busy jamming to the opening music that you could then hear.
Yeah, the funk beats.
The funky beats.
Don't know if that's
Hello.
what I don't know if that's the actual name, but that's what I've gone with, the funk beat.
I can't remember what it's called. Hold on. I can't tell you what it's called. Hello and welcome to Sometimes Video Games. My name is Adam, and I am joined today, as per usual, by Charlie Walsh. How are you, Charlie Walsh?
I'm tired, but
Oh.
I've had like a lot of sleep, but over the course of multiple sessions. Do you know what I mean? Like if it was one big sleep, I would be real refreshed. But because it was like 4 little sleeps,
Oh, that's the worst.
I feel very bad about that.
I
It
can tell
doesn't
you
feel good.
the name of our opening song is called "Your Call" by Kevin MacLeod.
Okay, MacLeod. But yeah, but I'm alright. I'm alright. I am inherently struggling because of that
Still
fact.
doing the sleepy stuff. Still not doing this. Not sleepy specifically, I guess.
I fell asleep in my chair last night
Mm.
while editing a bunch of stuff that we've got coming up on our YouTube channel
Oh.
this week and beyond.
Oh.
And I fell asleep while they were rendering,
Mm.
exporting. While a batch of it was, and then woke up at like it must have been about I don't know, it was about 8 or something in the morning, something like that. I don't remember what it was. And then I fell asleep about 5.
Mm.
Walked over to the sofa while my computer was turning off, but my computer does this thing, and I don't know why to this day, where if it needs to update, and you know when you turn your computer off, it says if it needs to update, it has like shut down an update or restart an update. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for some reason, even if I click shut down on an update, it restarts the computer, and I've never understood why. But it does do that, right? So anyway, I click shut down on update, but I have to wait to make sure it actually shuts down, so I don't leave the computer on all night for no reason. So I was on the sofa waiting for it, and then subsequently fell asleep on the sofa. My girlfriend then came in at about I don't know, I don't remember what time, but she came in maybe 11 o'clock or something like that, 10, 11, something like
Yeah, that makes sense.
that. Was like, yo, what
In
the
the
hell are you
morning
doing?
or
Yeah, in the
yeah,
morning.
okay.
Was like, what the hell are you doing? Just go to bed. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, yeah, you're not wrong. Noticed I saw the computer was off, so it worked that time.
Not
Went
wrong,
to
yeah.
bed, woke up about 1-ish,
Mm.
came in back, sat on my computer, fell asleep almost instantaneously again.
Oh my god.
So yeah, I've had enough sleep, but over the course of like 4 different sessions in different locations, and none of which were particularly comfortable. So I feel very rough about it, but
It's,
you know,
it
that's
sounds
just how
like an
that goes.
issue. It does sound like an issue. Oh,
It's I would describe it as a problem.
yeah. Uh, I mean, we've already had our bloody music talk off screen. I hate this. I hate that we come in and I hate that we're friends, Charlie, because
Yeah,
that
I
means
know.
that we immediately want to talk to each other, and then all of
I'll
the
look.
good
I'll
conversation is missed.
I'll boil it down to this:
Oh god,
Adam listens to too much music
I
but
do
refuses to
listen to so much
stop.
music. I don't refuse. Well,
I
I do
thought about
refuse
this
to
right
stop.
while I was just going pee and grabbing water just
Mm.
before we started. I had this thought,
Sure.
and I often come back to thinking.
Mm.
I often think to myself when people, because you know I do this thing where I go name something you think everyone's seen and I haven't seen it because I'm terrible,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And I often think to myself like people will name stuff like everything I've watched I've really liked,
Uh-huh.
and
Well, just
sometimes I forget
everything you've watched.
most of it, like an incredibly high percentage,
Mm.
and a lot of the time I think to myself like. It doesn't quite clock for me until I go. That's because I only tend to watch stuff I know is going to be good,
Uh-huh.
right?
Sure.
I only bother
Mm.
consuming what I know I'm probably going to enjoy. It's very
Mm.
rare that I watch something that will be middle of the road. I'll
Mm.
watch some abject, terrible stuff, but that's more for the banter of the
Yeah, you're
situation. It's
like you
improvement.
know you'll enjoy that because it will be so bad that it's good, right?
Right, exactly. There's very few things I've seen that are so middle of the road
Mm.
that are just completely unenjoyable. Like there was that film, that space film with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence in it.
Oh,
Can't
the
remember.
Gravity is it called?
No.
No, I know what you mean now. I know which one you
Yeah,
mean.
they're like they wake up in a ship and they're alone, and that English guy, I can't remember his name, is Michael something or whatever, is a robot flipping drinks pouring machine or whatever. Anyway, the point is that was
Passengers.
Passengers. There we go. That
Passengers.
did not enjoy that. Did
Michael
not enjoy that. I
Sheen
was
is the other.
Michael
Is
Sheen.
Michael
That's the guy I was
Sheen.
thinking of. Thank you. He supports
Mm.
Manchester United. I think it's one of those things where like I watched that
Sure.
and I knew going into that we watched it, but under the proviso that we knew it probably we wouldn't enjoy it because we knew like my girlfriend had already read the book or whatever,
Oh,
read the
really?
script or whatever it was, like so, and had already known everything about it and was going into it thinking this won't be good. Apparently, this isn't good, and I was like, yeah, but whatever, we'll just watch it. But outside of that, there's very few things I watch that are just middle of the road or whatever that just aren't enjoyable. Whereas like and so whenever you talk to me whenever we had this conversation about music
Sure, sure.
and you and look, I think I am incredibly I admire it to a huge extent what you try to do, but I also do think it's a massive detriment to just listen to every single major album that comes out every single week.
Yeah, I
I
listened to
think
the
it's
Ed Sheeran
incredible.
album.
I think
That
it's
was the thing.
incredible, but at the same time, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, like, so, like, let's just like, if I wasn't, the thing is, I like listening to things. I like exploring new things. I like listening and experiencing things that I don't or would not normally. I
Mm.
enjoy that. I enjoy the idea of hearing because you never know. And like you never know. I might have liked, for example, the new ABBA album. Fuck it, you know. I might have really liked the ABBA album. I might have loved it. I might have hated it.
It's
Who
your
knows? Who
it's
knows?
FOMO. This is what this all is. It's
No,
just
it's not. It's
FOMO.
no. It's not FOMO. It's not like I'm like I don't want to miss out. It's the idea of exploring new stuff and finding something interesting that I don't know about. Like
Mm.
you know, like the like. I mean, I can imagine like sort of like last week, for example, I listened to the Megan Thee Stallion album. Like, it's not that I've never listened to Megan Thee Stallion before, but like she's cool. And if I hadn't gone out and listened to a Megan Thee Stallion album, I wouldn't know that I like Megan Thee Stallion. I would just be like, oh, yeah, she's that thing that did WAP, right? She's the person who did WAP, but otherwise I would have not known. But like, you know, I listened to it and I'm like, you know, this is cool. I enjoy this. This is good. You know, I kind of live
You're,
on the idea that
you're
like you
you're
don't know
just
if you
describing
dislike it.
FOMO to me.
It's that's not FOMO though. I don't like.
No, but it's the idea of you should do something just in case.
It's not just in case I like it or
Here's,
dislike it. It's I just like
here's what
experiencing
I'll
new
align it
things.
to.
Okay.
I go to say what's a good example? Um, I don't know. Right, I order an Indian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure, sure.
Now I've been told butter chicken
Uh
is
huh.
really good.
Okay. You might like butter chicken. Yeah, you might
A
like
lot
butter
of
chicken.
people I trust their curry opinions on.
Uh huh. Sure.
And they say you would probably really like butter chicken
Mm. So
because you love chicken
do you go
korma.
and try butter chicken then?
I get to the Indian, or I go to more realistic for me.
Yeah.
I open up the Indian website
You
on
open
Just
up,
Eat
yeah,
or
Just Eat,
Delivery
yeah,
or
sure.
Uber Eats or whatever it is.
Not sponsored by either of those. Any of those, yeah.
No, but I can
There
tell you
are
for a fact
alternates
now.
available.
I could tell you for a fact now that the Deliveroo map is a trash thing.
Oh, is it?
It's a mess. Anyway, the point is, and I look at it and I look at the menu and I see the butter chicken
Uh huh.
and I think today is the day.
Sure. Yeah.
But then underneath it, I'll see the words chicken korma, and I think today's not the day anymore because I know I love chicken korma. So why, oh why would I step out of that
Because
when I know
you might love butter
when?
chicken more.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter about the mic. I know I love chicken korma, and
But
this
you
is my
might
point.
love butter chicken more.
This is my point. Why would I do that? Now I think it's slightly different because there's there's an element of money here, whereas obviously with most of these major albums you can just
I
listen
mean,
to them on Spotify.
all I'm doing is losing time, and even losing time, I can do other things in the background. Like I've said, I've been playing Final Fantasy 14 a lot
Yeah,
to try and prepare for the next expansion that's coming out, and so I just turn the sound off and listen to music on top of it.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's fine. I just have all it takes is me going. These are the list of albums that I want to listen to. Pop them on a Spotify playlist. I'll just listen to them straight. Whatever. The thing is though, like it's not fear of missing out. It's not a FOMO thing. It's a I haven't tried this thing. I might like this thing. Why not give
But
it a go?
I think that is FOMO. I
That's
just
not
think we've got different.
FOMO.
But I
No,
think we just got
because
different.
you there was
But I just think you've
Charlie.
got different.
There was a point in life where you
We
didn't
have.
have a korma before. There was
But
a
I
point
think
in
we
life where
have
you've
different.
never had a korma.
Yeah, but I can tell you exactly. But it's a different scenario, and I'll tell you why. Because that. But that's only with that specific example.
Okay.
Because the only reason why was I got dragged when I was like a kid, a young kid, single digits, to an Indian with my dad and one of his
Sure.
friends. And them both knowing that I do not react well to spicy things got me the mildest thing on the menu,
Yeah.
and I just happened to love it. But I didn't want to be there. I would rather go to the McDonald's next door or whatever.
Right, but there was also a
But
point you've
it's
never
just
had
what it is.
McDonald's before, right? How do you, where's
I
the bit where you go, let's
honestly,
never try anything new?
I cannot remember. Probably like 4 years ago. I honestly cannot remember a time I've never had a McDonald's. But that is obviously true. That was obviously factually an accurate statement. But I
Of
can't
course,
remember
yeah.
that time. But I can't
Yeah.
remember that time. But what I mean by all this is that I think, and I just think we have different definitions of FOMO, and I think that's
Maybe,
fair.
but
But I do, and again, I say you're insane for doing it,
I mean, I know I am insane for
but
doing it.
at the same time, I have nothing but admiration for you doing it.
You have
I
admiration.
really don't, massively. If anything, jealousy, because I think it's an incredible thing to try and do. But at the same time, I do think you're just completely wild doing it.
See, I mean, it comes from a love of music. Like it comes from a deep seated love of music, and also a thought process of wanting to experience new things. Like I genuinely have I want to experience new things. I know it's not a new thing, for example, but I saw on Twitter the other day that there was a new twirl coming out. It's a caramel twirl. Now, for one, I'm almost definitely gonna fucking love that because I like caramel and I like twirls.
I like 12,
Whatever.
yeah.
But like, even if I didn't particularly like twirls, I'd be like, you know what, I want to try this because maybe I like it. You know, this is a new thing. I'm interested. Like, you know, I have this interest for experiencing new things as a general thing that's like deep seated within me. Like I'll go to maybe I'll go to a takeaway and I'll order something that I'll get, you know, like each time or whatever. But I typically like new things.
Because I think everyone's probably like that to some extent. And although I am incredibly stuck in my ways, I'm exactly the same. But I think with music it's a different method, right? Instead of listening to a whole album that's just come out, say ABBA as an example, okay, they've just released their new album.
Yeah.
Instead of, hang on, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh my god, that hurt. Okay, right, we're back.
Jesus.
Instead of say I was in your situation where you're not a particular ABBA fan,
Sure.
right? You've never really deep dived into ABBA before. You obviously know some of their songs.
Yeah, of course.
Like you're and obviously I don't think there's a person in the UK who is unaware of what
Probably
ABBA
not.
is.
Yeah, probably not. Well, maybe I don't know if they're children.
Say I was in your position, my stance, my maneuver for that wouldn't have been listening to the new album.
Would you listen to the two singles and go, okay, one of these is fine, the other one's definitely not for me. I won't bother.
To an extent, I probably would have just gone to ABBA and Spotify and listened to their top songs.
And
then I actually understand.
I already know what ABBA's top songs are.
But then I would actually understand. In my head, I'm like, okay, I now gain an understanding of what sort of ABBA is. And then if I like it, then hey, then I can deep dive more into it. Whereas if I don't, then we move. A good example is this. I've been watching Waterloo Road again because I'm an idiot.
Sure.
Right? So I've been rewatching Waterloo Road. And Warwick Avenue by Duffy started playing in the background because that show is incredibly of its time and the songs mark the years as they go by quite aptly and accurately.
Yeah.
And so Warwick Avenue by Duffy started playing.
Sure.
And one of the beautiful things about me being so stupid is I hear a lot of these songs at the time, but they just go straight in and out of my ears because I wasn't really concentrating. Because I don't concentrate in life. I don't know if you've noticed this. It's just not something I do, right?
Sure.
And so I know what Duffy is.
Yeah.
I could have told you exactly how Duffy sounded. I probably could have sung that other big song she had.
Begging You for Birdseed.
Mercy. Yeah, exactly. Begging You for Birdseed, right? I heard Warwick Avenue and I was like, and I knew it was Duffy because I know Duffy to the extent where I can recognize Duffy's voice from a mile off. And I'm listening to this, I'm like, this song's actually really good.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm now interested in Duffy. So I went back and I listened to Duffy's top songs. And then I go, okay, well, maybe I would listen to a whole Duffy album. Maybe I'd listen to this. I'm just listen to that, you know? But I would never say Duffy released her new album now. I never would have listened to it start to finish
Mm,
even though I've always had an interest in, I wonder what Duffy is actually like. I
sure.
would never have listened to it start to finish. I would just listen to the bigger songs and then
Uh-huh.
gained an understanding of what it was, then gone into the weeds.
So I
You
did.
know,
I probably. I mean, I would listen to the Duffy album solely for the fact that she's done the two big songs prior. Like I have weaned myself off the idea of doing every album because there was a point where I was trying to do every album, and I still like doing that to some degree because I listen to weird stuff, but like obviously, like if Duffy hadn't had the big hits previously, I would never like listen to her album, but I probably would listen to the album just to like, what is it good? Is it not? Whatever,
Duffy's also a weird example, obviously, because
Duffy is a weird example, yeah.
she disappeared for such a long period of time
I mean,
that
like
it's
ABBA.
almost. Yeah, but I mean, for obviously for different reasons. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
she obviously disappeared for such a long period. It wasn't like it's not like Adele who had
Mm,
those big hits around about the same time as Duffy, and then just continued to exist in the world. I mean,
mm-hmm.
Adele also just didn't release any music for like 5 years or whatever. But like, didn't literally completely disappear off the map for like
No, no,
for
you
like
still know who Adele
15
is.
years
Like,
or whatever.
she was still being played. Like, you wouldn't be able to get
Yes.
away from um
Hello or whatever.
Hello. Yeah, Hello was the one that came to mind, even though it's not the one. Like Rolling in the Deep.
Yes.
Like Rolling in the Deep or Set Fire to the Rain. I don't know if that's the name of the song, but that's what she says in it. And then she's Skyfall and stuff as well. Like she was always there. She was always present. Like same with Ed Sheeran, for example. Like there are probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of like white guys with guitars who make music. But like Ed Sheeran's
I would go as far as to say
always
there's too
there.
many. There's
Ed
too many.
Sheeran's like
But Ed Sheeran, but to be
always
fair,
there.
Ed Sheeran again releases more music than either than Adele
I
does.
mean, sure, yeah, true, true, true,
He
true.
releases an album like every 2 years or so. Even
Mm.
if it's not an album of fully original songs, well, they're all original. But even if it's not
He does the
an Ed
collaboration shit,
Sheeran
or
solo, he
yeah.
does the collaborations, yeah, whatever. Which again, some of those songs are Ed Sheeran's best work, but that's a side note for a different time.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Oh mate, that song he did with the one he did with Stormzy H and JK Bangs,
Mm.
Take Me Back to London. The one he did with what's that country and western guy? Big Beard. Oh, what's his name? Really, really, really just generic name.
Sure.
But he did it with him and was it Bruno Mars?
Mm.
The song with the country, I think it's Bruno Mars. I think it's Ed Sheeran, the country music guy, and Bruno Mars. That slaps.
Sure.
Similar in a similar way to Limp Bizkit slapping,
Uh-huh.
in that you can't take it seriously, but it slaps.
Okay. Sure, sure. I mean, I think Ed Sheeran is, as a whole, you probably should take a bit more seriously, but I don't know.
Yes, I wouldn't take his collaboration stuff seriously, but yeah,
Okay.
you would.
Yeah.
And I've said this to you before as well, and this is a complete side note to everything. It's
Mm.
just about Ed Sheeran specifically and Adele specifically as well. And I've said this to you personally before, but
Okay.
we can say it publicly now. As
Now.
much as I'm not into Ed Sheeran
Uh-huh.
and Adele,
Yeah.
I respect them massively because they do write and craft all of their own stuff.
That's
Like
sort of the thing I've said about a lot of people.
I think that's massively
Yeah.
admirable. Like especially like someone as big as Ed Sheeran could very easily
Mm.
like or Adele could very easily just have someone write all of their songs.
Adele
And that's not to say they don't
particularly. Like,
that's not
so.
yeah, that's not to say they don't have
Mm.
writers or whatever, but like they really could just get someone at the label could just hire
Yeah.
someone to write all their songs and they could just phone it in and make all of the money
Absolutely could.
constantly.
So like Ed
And
Sheeran and like Taylor Swift as well to some degree, they're kind of famous
yes,
for writing their own stuff and for
yeah,
being songwriters and the whole like singer-songwriter genre, which isn't really genre. Adele isn't really known for writing her own music. She's just known for having a really good voice and like being
yeah,
a kind of cheeky chappy, I guess. Like Adele really, really easily could just get other people to write songs for her and doesn't. And like it genuinely, I think I've always said it, and I've always said it about Taylor Swift specifically because I know a lot of people like hate on Taylor Swift
yeah,
for lots of weird reasons. But I've always said like, no, I respect Taylor Swift. You know, she writes her own stuff. Fair play to her. She writes her own
mhm,
stuff. She plays her own instruments. She sings properly. Fair play to her. Like she can do what she wants in my book. You know, like she isn't just a pop star with like a hollow background and like filled with writers and producers and shit. Like, and obviously
yeah,
to some degree she's gotten bigger, she's gotten more into the sort of pop stuff and more into the legions of producers and whatever. But like You know, like she, fair play to her, fair play to her, and it's not that I don't respect singers who have other people write songs for them or anything like that, um, because it's difficult to write a song, you know. But I respect the people who write their songs in a different way, you know. Like there are pop stars
Yeah.
out there who don't write their own songs, and fair play to them. But
Yeah, and I love a lot of that stuff. Like, and it's not a judgment across it at all.
mm,
Like, if you're a pop star who doesn't write your own things, but like someone else writes it and it's still a banger, it's still a banger in my
I mean,
mind.
yeah,
You know,
exactly right. Yeah, exactly. If someone else has written it, someone else has written it. Who cares? Like it's still a fucking good song at the end of the day, you know.
"The
And
Call"
like
by Backstreet Boys is one of my favorite songs. The Backstreet Boys
the
didn't write it.
Backstreet, yeah, yeah. I don't know if the Backstreet Boys. I don't think they ever have written their own songs. I imagine not.
I don't know, but I can't imagine so. But
Mm.
that's a judgment on my part. I actually have no clue.
I mean, yeah, true, true, true. But I imagine I know that Max Martin's had some stuff in Backstreet
Yeah,
Boys
he
writings
has.
before, and you know,
That's
yeah.
that Swedish man out here just secretly writing every song in the universe.
And you know, I have far more respect for people who just go, okay, like someone else is writing my songs. Than I mean, did you ever see the fucking Green Day album, Father of All Motherfuckers?
No.
Where I think they were advertising it. There was like, there are no Swedish songwriters on this one. Like, yeah, just hard rock and roll. And I'm like, this is the worst album in fucking history, and you're
Yeah.
trying to brag about how nobody else helped you on this. I'd have far more respect for you if you came out and went, I guess we wrote a shit album and kind of needed some help in terms of maybe Swedish
Yeah.
songwriting.
Can I? I'm gonna say something now that I think is probably
Sure.
incorrect,
Okay.
factually, objectively.
Sure.
But I'm gonna say it now with my chest out.
Hmm.
Limp Bizkit and Green Day are the exact same thing.
What do you
Limp Bizkit,
mean?
if anything, quality wise, I think Limp Bizkit might even be better.
That's hard to say because old Green Day has some decent
Old Limp
tracks.
Bizkit. Next question, you're on.
Old Limp Bizkit doesn't have. Come on, man.
Limp Bizkit have written better songs than Green Day have. My Way by Limp Bizkit is better than any Green Day
Look,
song.
I'm trying to be objective. I
I,
dislike. I dislike both. I'm trying to be objective here and give you the win on Limp Bizkit. It's really fucking difficult.
Bruv, My Way
Like, I
is
actually
better.
dislike Green Day more than I dislike Limp Bizkit. I'm trying to give you the
There
win
we
here,
go.
and it's really fucking hard.
There we go. I'm taking that as a W. Thank you very much. In your face, the world.
And I know I'm unusual because I dislike Green Day. A lot of people really love Green Day. I never really liked Green Day, to be fair.
Look, one of my best friends who's also annoyed, like coincidentally and confusingly called Adam,
Mm,
loves Green Day. Was
mm,
basically the band that made him love music and wanted to do
yeah,
music, and
mm,
now he plays guitar because of Green Day. Still loves Green Day. Still
of
think Limp
course.
Bizkit's significantly better, but is what it is. Maybe not significantly. Maybe
There's
significantly is unfair,
the
but I do.
significantly is really unfair.
But I do think that like you can discount both bands' output after like a very specific
Oh
album.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Although I would say that maybe Green Day's write-off point is later than Limp Bizkit's, and their starting point is earlier.
Potentially, but then I would also make the argument that they have the added bonus of doing a genre that didn't have a very, very brief period of existence.
The new metal
Like
thing,
if and if Limp
like
Bizkit dared
Slipknot's
to go
still
out,
going.
I
Linkin
I
Park could
don't
still
think
be going
I
if it
don't
weren't for
think
Chester.
yeah, but Linkin Park don't do that genre anymore. I think
True,
if
true.
Limp Bizkit dared to step out of that genre, I don't think
Mm.
they could. Don't get me wrong. I don't think if you look at say if you look at say Linkin Park's
Mm.
progression and trajectory, I don't think Limp Bizkit were ever going to
Limp
do that.
Bizkit could not. I don't think they
I
could.
don't I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
think
think they
that's
could.
them, right? But at the same time,
Can you imagine Fred Durst singing?
right, exactly.
Anything?
But
Sure.
if you had, but I think they do have the handicap of saying that genre went out of style the same time Limp Bizkit went out of style and was no longer socially acceptable, whereas Green Day's
Socially
didn't.
acceptable.
Whereas Green Day's didn't, and yet Green Day didn't produce anything.
What do you mean didn't produce
And
anything?
again, I'm saying this
What do you mean didn't produce
knowing
anything?
that, and again, I wish to stress, I am saying this knowing I am objectively wrong,
Yes, you
but
are objectively wrong.
I am going to steadfastly refuse
Uh-huh.
with my chest out
Mm.
to accept that fact, and I will continue to say
What
that Limp
about
Bizkit. Okay.
American Idiot?
Yeah, it's their one good. It's their one good thing.
That's their
That's what I'm
one
talking
good.
about.
No, Basket Case
That's the line.
isn't the good thing.
I can't name a song off Basket Case.
Okay. No, that's the song. The song is Basket Case.
Oh well, there you go. See,
I think that's from
not important. It's not my way by Limp Bizkit.
Nookie. I don't know. Basket Case is a really good song.
Nookie Bangs by Limp Bizkit.
Ducky, Ducky,
Oh, I thought you
Nookie.
said.
I
I thought
don't.
you said
Ducky. I did say
Nookie by
Nookie,
Limp Bizkit.
but Ducky.
I did it all for the
Dookie.
Nookie.
I don't
What?
fucking know.
The Nookie. What? So you
So you
can
can
take
eat
that
the
cookie and
cookie
stick
and
it up
stick it
your
up your
yeah.
yeah.
It's
That one.
such-
Yeah. It doesn't.
I love
It's
I
nonsensical.
love how just like not to turn this into Limp Bizkit hour, but it's going to be.
It's gonna be Limp Bizkit.
I adore Limp Bizkit, and
Mm.
they're just they just don't they just I know we were just talking about how little they care and how like you were talking about how some of the songs on their new album like sound like they care and all this other stuff,
No,
but
it's not
like
that. I just think that
no,
they're pushing the idea that they don't care too hard.
but this is what I'm saying, right? This is what I guess I was going to
It's
say.
like the Sex Pistols, man.
I adore that they would even consider releasing a song like Nookie,
Uh
which is one of the most stupid
huh.
things
Sure.
that just has ever stupided.
Yeah. I mean,
And they did that shit they did that shit proudly. Proudly.
they did also. But I think there's a write off point where like, so I think with Limp Bizkit and the whole not caring thing, like there's obviously a point where they didn't care, like with Nookie and shit like that, like break stuff, you know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
those songs, they clearly just didn't care what anyone thought and were like, nah, fuck it, I'm gonna go mad. Like is it Break Stuff where the whole video is just people dressed up as Fred Durst?
I don't know, but it sounds about right.
Like it's just like everybody's dressed up as Fred Durst and he's got like Eminem to jump in on it and Snoop Dogg and Dre and stuff and he's just like, what the fuck? Like he clearly doesn't give a shit at that point. He's like,
Isn't
nah,
it
I'm just doing this.
just very briefly, I'll let you carry on, but
Cool.
isn't it wild that Limp Bizkit were like a cultural touchstone at one point? Carry on, but isn't that what were we doing in 2001? Anyway, carry on.
So like at that era of Limp Bizkit, clearly they don't give a shit because they're young and obviously don't give a shit. But like later, I feel like the boiling point is when it stopped being socially acceptable for Limp Bizkit to. You said socially acceptable, not me. For Limp Bizkit to be Limp Bizkit, that's when Limp Bizkit started caring because they were a bit like, oh, we're old men now and this isn't cool. Let's do a
I don't
cover of The Who's Behind Blue Eyes.
see, but I would say they never stopped. They never. I think they know that it's socially unacceptable, and that's why
I
they
think
can
they do
release an
now. I
album
think
called
they
"Still
do now.
Sucks" and has the word "dad vibes" on it.
I think they do
Because
now.
I think you can't again unless you are so oblivious to your own self-being
I think they
that you
were.
can't realize that in 2021 Limp Bizkit cannot be doing what Limp Bizkit were doing 20 years later, like with 20 years have passed, not only
Sure.
in terms of music
Mm.
but in terms of, you know, them as human beings on this earth. They can't have grown 20 years and still be doing Limp
I
Bizkit,
think
yet
back
they
in the day
are.
they were. I think back in the day they were like that. I think back in the day, you know, when they started when it started to become socially unacceptable, they did. I think they were still of the opinion that what they were doing was cool and that they were like a serious. I think they became of the opinion that they were a serious
No,
band.
I don't know if they were ever a serious band though. Because even Chocolate Star, their album's called Chocolate Starfish. I mean, like every
This is after that. This is after that. Let me
yeah, but
Google Limp Bizkit from
I know. But what I'm saying is, I don't know if they ever took themselves seriously. But a point I would bring up maybe is if you, the Linkin Park
2006 when
comparison
they
is
broke up.
the Linkin Park comparison is interesting because Linkin Park had
I mean,
one.
Linkin Park would never. I
I
mean,
can't remember what album it was, but one of their albums goes essentially back to what they were doing.
mm,
And then they ended up going back off into the realms of whatever you want to call their last album. But like there was an album midway through the 2010s or whatever
mm.
where it was just Linkin Park doing what most would consider an old school Linkin Park album. I think
Or
there's always a sort of. I think again, if maybe I'm being too generous when I say this, but I think you can't. It's when it's similar to how people criticize footballers, for example,
mm.
when they have off days, but forgetting that actually they are human
Oh
beings.
yeah, no, yeah,
You know, and so like just as me and you could work in an office, and in one day just something happens or whatever, we get mad, just disgruntled,
mm.
and we just have a shit day of work, and like that can happen to a
Of
footballer.
course, yeah,
You
of
know,
course you can.
a right back who plays for Chelsea, Reece James, could wake up one day and have an absolute nightmare that morning
Mm.
and then just play crap in the afternoon because of it. I think similarly, we forget to some extent that musicians are humans.
Sure.
And so part of it is like, I think that Linkin Park, and I don't know, I haven't looked into this. I didn't really even listen to the album when it came out.
Mm.
And to be honest with you, I haven't listened to much Linkin Park since their heyday,
Mm.
right? But I'm sort of aware vaguely of the trajectory they went.
Sure,
But
sure.
it doesn't surprise me that bands like Limp Bizkit would go
Mm.
through that sort of phase you're describing, or that Linkin Park would go back to their older days, because maybe and is maybe too early timeline for this, but he could be just having sort of a vague midlife crisis and
Mm-hmm.
going, no, let's try and do what we used to do. Let's see what happens. Let's see how we vibe it, you know.
Mm.
And then you move from there. Now, does that work out? Probably not,
Uh,
but it doesn't surprise me that it
and
happens.
I think the important thing to notice in music specifically with this as well. I mean, it may not necessarily even be in music as well, but I think maybe art forms, because like it kind of goes that way. But like fans are fucking shit, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like Linkin Park specifically, I know this was a case for them. That after Meteora, when they started changing up their sound, I mean, they even changed up their sound a bit for Meteora, but people still dug Meteora. But like, as soon as they made the third album, I think it's 1,000 Suns, everybody sort of started going off them and were like, "Oh, this isn't the same as it was. This is
yeah,
different now. I don't like this. You guys suck. You guys are shit. You guys," and then like piling on the hate on Linkin Park for whatever reason, and
yeah.
like that is, I mean, to some degree, what a lot of the degree, I imagine, what Limp Bizkit did as well, although not really necessarily the fans, but more like the outside fan stuff, people who thought Limp Bizkit were not great anyway to begin with, kind of hating on them for being whatever. It's easy for you to go back and be like, oh, fuck, you know, you guys wanted something heavy, well, I guess we'll do something heavy. You guys wanted something, you know, metal or whatever. Like
Mhm.
it's a weird comparison to draw, but Linkin Park and Bring Me the Horizon, for example, have had very similar structures. Bring Me the Horizon is still going now, but in their early career they were like death metal, I guess, right? Or
Yeah,
like proper heavy metal stuff. And
yeah,
then they made an album that had lots of electronics in it because they were like vibing, hey, let's do a more electronic album, let's do some cool stuff with ideas and a new band member that we brought in. And then a lot of the old fans were like, "Oh, this is shit," because it's not death metal. You know, it's not death metal
yeah,
anymore. So let's fucking hate on this band. And then like later on, as they've gone more poppy, I guess poppy is the word, but like they're still a heavy metal band. Later on, as they've gone more pop influences and more electronic influences, like people are still going, "Oh, but it's not as good as the first album or whatever," and that shit. And that, I think, would make them want to do old stuff, right? If their fans are like, I mean, in Bring Me the Horizon's case, I know that they don't really give a shit. They've written a song like, it ain't heavy metal, so fuck off. Like, if you don't like it, don't fucking matter. But like in a lot of bands' cases, because as you say, they're human too. Surely they just want their fans to like the shit that they do, and like, it's a very
mm,
easy way to just get stuck in the past. It's the same with Green Day and shit. We were talking about Green Day. Like, a lot of people love that American Idiot album, and then they came out with a couple albums after that that were total garbage. And then this new album that is actually terrible, um, is something they tried to go back and do some American Idiot style stuff with. You know, they tried to go back. They were like, "Hey, we American Idiot was popular. Let's go do that." Right? Especially if you're a
yeah,
band with so many years under your name as well. Like,
yeah,
bands can come out, do an album, and fucking go, but bands who have been going for 20 years, like Limp Bizkit have, like, your fans are going to be all over the place, and they're going to like certain albums more or less than other albums, and it's it's gonna go all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something I will always back as well, and it's the complete opposite of what Limp Bizkit have ever done.
Mm.
And when I say I love Limp Bizkit, you can don't take what I'm saying seriously, right? Take it,
You
but
love
at the
Limp
same
Bizkit, but
time,
like also
at the
you're not
same
gonna sit there and listen to them while you cry.
yeah, and at the same time, I'm not gonna listen to any other album apart from Chocolate Starfish. But I think,
Really?
but what I will say is this: I think that I always want bands to evolve every single time,
Mm.
even if it's evolve in a direction I'm not particularly happy with,
Mm.
or I'm not happy with, even if it's in a way
An
I
album
don't
you don't care
particularly
about, yeah,
like. Do it.
of
100%
course.
always do it. When you see people, and again, Limp Bizkit is a great example of this, but I won't use them because I want to give them as much respect as humanly possible, and I refuse to admit any faults with Limp Bizkit. Any other band that doesn't evolve,
Yeah.
let's say Bimp Bizkit, right?
But yeah,
A
Bimp
band that
Bizkit, yeah,
definitely exists, right? And they just
great
keep
band.
doing the same thing.
Mm.
Like, and again, to be fair, I don't think it's exactly the same because I don't think they take themselves
I
seriously.
love
But
their
in
song "Why May."
sure, but it's a banger.
It is.
Um,
"Why May" is a
uh,
really great song.
yeah. A band that takes themselves more seriously but doesn't evolve. Let's say.
Mm.
I don't have an example off the top of my head, but we all know what we're talking about here.
Sure, sure, sure.
I just can't be asked with it.
Mm.
Like as much and like it's weird if I get into and I've had this conversation with the other Adam that I referenced earlier before.
Mm.
Um, if I get into a band late, then I don't mind if their entire back catalogue sounds the same.
Yeah, because you're into that one thing, right? You listen
You
to this
find it,
album
you
and you
go,
go,
"Oh,
"Oh,
this is
cool.
cool,"
Like,
and
is
you're
there
like, "There's
more?"
lots of this. This is cool."
Yeah.
But like, if I listen to it, if it's contemporary and I listen to it at the time,
Mm.
and then in 2 years' time, the same thing comes out,
Mm.
I sort of go, okay. Like I'm always here for something more, and
Yeah.
it again. I understand why people don't do it, because that just might not be what they want to do, and I
That's
totally
perfectly
100%
fine as
respect
well.
that.
Like that's
And hey,
yeah.
if it comes out and it's good, it comes out and it's good. There's no
Mm.
complaints from anyone in that scenario. But it's more specifically when you're like you're looking at it and you're like, okay, could have done you could have okay. And it's sort of like I always feel this argument with video games
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
where people talk about like the idea of like what's the perfect sequel?
Mm.
It's the same but more and bigger.
It's
And
not though,
it's
is it?
like
I don't think it's that way.
yeah, I don't think that's true. And like
Mm.
at times maybe that is true. There is times maybe where like you play the first one
Mm.
and it's say a 7 out of 10 and you're like okay, if they worked on these specific elements and it gave us another one, then maybe the next one could bang.
But that's
But in that case, maybe the perfect sequel is more the same but bigger and more
that
whatever.
only works
But
if they
that's
haven't perfected the formula to begin with.
but this is
Like,
what I mean. If you're playing something and you genuinely you love it to the extent where you're like, this is a 9 or whatever,
yeah,
then I don't think the
the
same
same but
bigger
more doesn't
is
exist. If it's a 10 out of 10, the same but more doesn't exist.
kind of yeah.
Like, it doesn't,
And
like,
and that's why I've always thought that, for example, Rayman Legends isn't as good as Rayman Origins because I
because it's
think
the
Rayman
same but
Origins
more.
is so good.
Mm.
It's the same but more and bigger, and you're just like,
Mm.
I'm not gonna dispute that this is great as well. I think it's excellent, but
Mm.
I think Rayman Origins is a 10. I think Legends is a 9. You know,
Sure.
it's not the perfect sequel in that sense.
Whereas if they went off and made a Rayman kart racer as the next Rayman game, you'd be all up for
Or
it.
if they just did, well, yeah, I'm always
I
up
mean,
for
that's
Kart
not.
Racer, but
I
if
didn't
they
mean kart racer
unless
specifically, but
specifically unless it's Garfield, which can get in the bin,
yeah.
but if it's anything else, but yeah, if they did something, you know, like Rayman 1 to Rayman 2,
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to
If they
Rayman
did
Origins to
something
Rayman
new,
Legends.
because Rayman Origins to Rayman Legends is you've made Rayman Origins, and then Rayman Legends is it's the same. It's the same game basically, and I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. Like I agree as well to a point. Like the idea that you like the same but more only works. Like for example with Knack, Knack was the perfect example of that I was thinking of.
It was a
In
10
that
out of 10, and it couldn't be perfect. And they were like, "What if we put another knack in there?" And you're like, that's not right here, guys. It's no,
No.
now you're talking Nax like aliens, and it's like you're changing the foot. I don't know about this.
But seriously, there were problems with the original Knack, and so they were like, okay, well,
I don't know if that's true.
let's fix those problems. And then they came out and made Knack 2, which is a game that fixes those problems. Like if
And was reviewed better because of it. Yeah,
and was
exactly.
reviewed better because of it, exactly, yeah. Like that's the point. And this is partially, I know this is a weird thing, it's partially why I really like Final Fantasy, is because none of those games are the same. Like, a lot of people dislike Final Fantasy for this specifically. A lot of Final Fantasy fans dislike Final Fantasy for this specifically as well. But, like, I love Final Fantasy because none of it is the same. Like, even from the first game to the second game, the jump in difference between what is there and what isn't is crazy. Like, they straight up, like, the one thing I would say is synonymous with that franchise is experimentation. That's
Sure.
the only thing that I would say is, well, other than like chocobos and moogles or whatever, like everything else is
And
completely
what's the
different.
character, Sid or whatever the character's
And
name
yeah,
is, or
there's always a character called Sid, although he's always different in each game. But what, like, those things are just superficial, like, similarities to kind of, you know, throwback more than anything. I don't think they're necessarily like themes that the games have in common, but mechanically they're all very different. So mechanically, the very first Final Fantasy game is um it's very similar to the very first Dragon Quest game. It's very rooted in Dungeons and Dragons. It's very rooted in like this whole sort of slow turn-based thing. You go do a dungeon, whatever. And then the second game, they basically like go, fuck it. We've got a full-on interesting story here. We're gonna change the level up system completely so that instead of you just leveling up as you gain experience, you have different body parts that level up individually the more you use them, which is fucking insane, but like also really genuinely interesting. Like, I have a right arm and a left arm. If I swing the sword with the right arm, my right arm sword gets better. And then if I
mm,
swap it to my left arm, my strength gets weaker significantly because I've not used my left arm. You know, like the practice makes perfect kind of leveling up. It's so genuinely interesting. And then they go, nah, fuck all that. We've got this interesting job system that we're going to do for Final Fantasy 3, and everyone has classes, and you can swap the classes for fun, you know, and like genuinely. And then the fourth one comes along, and they revamp the battle system entirely and make you do active time things. It's like it's ridiculous, and like to me, that's what makes a perfect series, is like something that doesn't go, we need to do the exact same thing every time. We need to go. I mean, maybe they go a bit too far in the ideas where we're like, we need to do something completely different every time. But you know, like, to me, that's what makes a perfect series. Is it, or and even albums to that degree, is like, hey, we want to do this. We want to do this with our thing. Let's go do it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Basically, I mean, like Final Fantasy is one of those examples which I can't speak to.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as you know, I just haven't played enough of them.
Shush, shush.
Like, and from an outside perspective, I think whenever you see something that's called like the 15th iteration of something
Mm.
in your brain, you're like, oh, this is too many. They need to stop making these.
Yeah.
But the example I would give, which I do know more about because I can't speak to Final Fantasy, would be Mario. You
And
know,
Mario does
Mario
lots of
consist
different shit every time.
every single time. There's some different
Mm.
thing
And
in
when
there
Mario
that
started doing
significantly changes
something
the game.
similar every time with the new Super Mario Bros. Thing,
It was
everyone
dead.
got really bored of it really quickly and was like, nah, fuck this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it was fun for a throwback once. And then the second game they released, everyone was like, but is it new Super Mario Bros. Still? Like,
Hmm.
it's not new anymore. And yeah, like the 3D Mario, or like Mario as the main series, for example, yeah, they introduced a bunch of shit. Like from Mario 64 to Mario Sunshine, that's a huge jump, right?
Yeah, Mario 64 to Mario Sunshine to Mario Galaxy,
Galaxy
and
to
then
Odyssey.
you obviously have Galaxy 2, but then Galaxy to Odyssey,
Mm.
like,
But
and
Galaxy
even
2 is like specifically
2
a
does,
sequel to Galaxy, and that's because they had things that they wanted to expand on within the
yeah,
Galaxy formula.
and even that, yeah, they still introduced some new
It
stuff in there,
was,
and
we had things about the Galaxy stuff that we wanted to change, we wanted to alter. Let's make Galaxy 2 because we want to make Galaxy better. Not
uh,
not let's make Galaxy 2 because Galaxy was so good. It's Galaxy 2 Its Galaxy wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. Let's make a better one.
And isn't it wild now we think back to it to an extent? And I think it was wild at the time, but we didn't get a proper full 3D Mario on the Wii U.
That is pretty. We got Mario 3D World, right?
Yeah, and I
But
guess you could include that,
mm,
and even that is
and
significantly
that's
different to
significantly
Galaxy.
different.
If you want to include that jump, I mean, it was a sequel
It's
to
Super Mario
3D
World,
Land,
but
but
yeah,
it was a
it's
sequel to the
crazy.
3DS game. But as if you're talking about only the mainline ones on consoles,
It's very different from Galaxy and on Odyssey, and like it's Super Mario World. It's like the 2D Mario's, but in a big 3D place with multiplayer, right? It's such a weird concept that they just went, nah, fuck it, let's do that. That's what we want to make
very,
now. I
very,
There's a lot of I talk about video games like specific. They're the kind of developers that I genuinely respect, and this is why I have a lot of love for what Nintendo does, even though business wise they're fucking horrible. Same for Square Enix. I think business wise, Square Enix is a terrible business, but like in terms of their games, I genuinely have a lot of respect for the direction process in both of those companies, and they go, you know, fuck it, we just want to do what we want, and that's kind of the big outlier there with Pokemon in Nintendo is that Pokemon isn't developed by an internal Nintendo team and seemingly gets very wrapped up in what sort of Nintendo business practices as opposed to just doing whatever the hell it wants with Pokemon.
yeah,
Like I think the big examples like going from the 3DS to the Nintendo Switch, you think, oh, you've got all of this room to make whatever the hell it is you want. And so the Mario team made Mario Odyssey and went mad, you know? Like the Metroid, we got Metroid Dread and we've got Metroid Prime 4 on the way. The Animal Crossing team went
that game's
absolutely
never
mad for
that
it.
game's never coming out.
Well, Metroid Prime 4. Yeah,
Yes,
maybe.
yes.
Maybe.
It'll come out in like 10 years, and everyone will be
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah. Well, it's Animal Crossing. Like the Animal Crossing team literally went all out and went, nah, fuck it. We're just gonna make what we want to make. Same with the Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem team went, nah, let's go crazy with it. The Pokemon team went, do you know what would be good, guys? If we just made another Pokemon game. Oh, yeah.
I also think it's one of those things where like, and this is a counterpoint to some extent,
Mm,
where I look at say the Animal Crossing games,
mm.
and I don't see the differences between them. Now I know they
Really?
exist, but I don't see them. But I
Mm,
do see that with other games as well. But I think it's when I think they exist, but to the outside world potentially they don't. But I
mm,
don't think that's just a statement on like what they're perceived as,
mm.
because I think it's like FIFA, where the outside world thinks every FIFA is the
Yeah,
same.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, but yet
But
there
if you
are
play it every year, you
differences if
know.
you know the differences and they are significant to you.
Mm.
But like to the outside world,
Unless they're on Switch, and then it is literally exactly the same.
then it is literally it's literally copy and paste. But like it's Control C, Control V. But
Yeah.
if you play them every year, then
Mm.
the changes are there and they are significant to you. Now it doesn't make FIFA good. It's always bad, and I don't understand people who keep buying FIFA. But
Sure.
um, yeah, it's one of those things where I think from the outside, like I couldn't tell you the differences between Animal Crossing games, but
Mm.
that's just because I don't play them. And I think
Sure.
it's one of those things where like musically, I think it's a lot easier to identify differences. So like when you're saying the difference between a Linkin Park album from 2001 and a Linkin Park album from 2010, the difference is
I
so
only I
abundantly
only
clear.
think that the difference is easy to tell when it's drastic. It's like in giving this to a video game, like making this a video game thing. It's like comparing Animal Crossing to Doom. You know, you're going, oh, these are the same
Sure.
game. Like that's how drastic some of these genre changes actually are, and like there are definitely differences
Yeah.
in music. So there are differences, let's say within like metal, for example. Like not all metal sounds the same. You know, like you can
My
definitely put on.
granddad would disagree.
I'm
My dad.
sure, I'm sure, but you could definitely put on like a Bring Me the Horizon record, a Mastodon record, a Metallica record, and know the
Yes.
difference between all three of those bands, even
Yeah.
though they're all playing the exact same genre of music.
Yeah.
You know, like there is differences between like there are differences between Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. They're not the same game. You
Yeah.
know, like you can definitely see these little differences, although from an outside perspective, maybe it is all the same. Like you say, your granddad like doesn't know shit about metal, but thinks they're all the same. I know many people who would look at Animal Crossing and look at Stardew Valley and go, "Well, they're the same," and the Harvest Moon,
Yeah.
whatever. You know, like yeah, the art style's slightly different, but they're exactly the same game, right? Well, no, they're very different.
Yeah, basically.
Mm.
It's interesting, but I will always like want people to step outside.
Mm.
But really, what I want is them to just do whatever they want. And if what they want, like Limp Bizkit, is to carry on for 25 years doing the exact same
Yeah.
thing, more power to you. Like 100% respect it. You
Mm.
do you, you do your thing, right? Similarly, if like Lincoln Park, you were like, let's try and evolve our styles in these sort of ways. Maybe we're feeling this more. Let's do this. Let's do that.
Mm.
Then I respect that. I want you to do whatever you want, and then I'll just, if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I don't want to sit there and try and tell you what to do. And then I think similarly in games, if you want to make a platforming crash game that is, you know, a sort of 2D slash 3D thing, then yeah, sweet. If you want to make a kart racing game, excellent. Go ahead and make it. If
Mm.
you want to make flipping whatever, however you would describe for or whatever, then yeah, sure. Then let's do that, you know. And
Sure.
if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I think
Mm.
it's just so deeply frustrating
I do think
when.
there's a slight. Sorry, you can go on.
No, go on. You first. You first. You first.
I do think there's a slight difference, and you bring up Crash there, in that, like, for example, talking about Linkin Park. Linkin Park are a band of like 5 or 6 people, I'm not entirely certain, who have gotten together to make specific music and gone, we want to make this, we want to make that, we want to make that. The people who made Crash originally are no longer working on the Crash franchise and have no input in how it's made or the art or the process behind that, and that's a very weird position to be in. It's like if you just swapped all of the members out of Linkin Park and replaced them with all of the members of ABBA and called it Linkin Park. Like, it's such a weird.
Oh, how cool would that be, though?
It's such a weird process. It would be
What
so
if
strange.
just for a single album, right? Linkin Park were ABBA and ABBA were Linkin Park.
But you wouldn't understand.
Imagine.
You'd be very confused, right? All the ABBA fans would be like, I don't know what's happening, and all of the Linkin Park fans would be like, this is fucking terrible.
Oh,
Right?
everyone would hate it, but I would be here for it. And I bring this example up a lot. I appreciate it, but in the same way that when I was having a conversation with a bunch of my friends about what I would
Mm.
do if I was running the MCU, I said I would gender flip every character and then quit because I
And
just
then
want to see
quit. You
the
wouldn't
world
even.
burn. I would get it to know. I would do it and then make sure the projects get to the extent where they've spent too much money on them not to release them, and then
Uh-huh.
I would quit and
Okay.
then just watch the world burn because I
Sure.
think just creating boiled piss is funny. But yeah, I
Sure.
ultimately,
Slightly different
ultimately,
situation though.
sure, that's just me being an idiot. But I think it is one of those things where, like, obviously, there's a different scenario with Crash because of different team making it now
Mm.
and whatever. But at the same time, it's just the same principle stands. Like, make whatever you want, and then if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I
Mm.
don't. But I think sitting there and going like, you need to change your art for me is like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's frustrating.
Do you
It's
think that
very.
people who don't make Crash should be able to make a Crash game? Like, I find that weird. Like, the whole idea of intellectual properties being bought by companies. Like, the fact that Naughty Dog and nobody who worked at Naughty Dog will be like, hey, I want to make a Crash game. Like, if they wanted to, like, maybe people at Naughty Dog do want to make a Crash game. I don't know. Maybe the people who did originally make Crash want to make a Crash game, but they now can't because it belongs to Activision, right? I find that very weird. And I find it very weird that Activision are there, can then go, oh, hey, you have to make this Crash game now. Because we want to make a Crash game because we own the license to Crash. You make a Crash game now. Like, it very much disrupts the idea of the artist's wants and well-being and stuff, right? Like, it's not like the label, and to be fair, I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe this is how the music industry works, and I think it is to some degree. Anyway, it's not like the label turned around to Linkin Park and said, make a Linkin Park album, you know?
Yeah,
They.
I think Linkin Park as a size band who are probably one of the biggest bands of our time to
Mm,
some extent. Like sales wise, I suspect that would be true.
essentially, yeah,
Um,
probably.
I wouldn't know that for certain, but I'd be willing to bet on it. In the
Yeah.
same way, I'd be willing to bet Coldplay were or Muse are or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Even if whatever.
yeah.
Um, I think there's certain levels of like success you get to where you just get afforded your own freedom.
Yeah.
And I
Mm,
think in video games there's a lot less of that, but keeping on the Crash example, Naughty Dog's an excellent example of it,
Mm.
where Naughty Dog are big enough to do whatever the hell they want to do. They just get on with
But
it.
are they though?
Sony
Like,
Sony
are
just
they
don't.
not
I
dictated at by Sony? Say, make another Last of Us,
don't
make
think so. I
another
think they just do
Uncharted.
it. As far as I've learned from what I've seen, they just do whatever the hell they want to do.
Mm.
And that's why, like, for example, Last of Us originally was a Jack and Daxter game.
Really, that would be interesting.
I don't know if you've ever
No, I didn't know
read
that was a
like
thing.
stories about the original. Yeah, originally they were trying to reboot Jack and Daxter
Wow.
after Uncharted 3 or whatever it
What
was. Was it 3?
into the
No,
Last of
after
Us?
2. So yeah, so Uncharted after Uncharted 2,
Mm.
Naughty Dog essentially essentially became a two team studio, right?
Okay.
You had a lot of the people who made a lot of the sort of, I don't know what you want to call them, not juniors or deputies, but
Mm.
like whatever you want to call them, right? Say like the second lead artist went on to become the lead artist of Uncharted 3 or whatever.
Mm.
And then the team who were the sort of the top line of that went on to make the new game, which ended up becoming The Last of Us.
Mm.
But before that, they were trying to reboot Jack and Daxter.
That's
That
so
wasn't
interesting.
dictated by Sony, but they were like, what if we tried to reboot Jack and Daxter in this day and age? What would that look like? And that's why Last of Us is like a two people thing, because originally it was this like, here's two main
Ellie was
characters
supposed to be Daxter.
kind of thing, yeah. And then obviously it evolved to an extent where they went, okay, this is very clearly, we've got this idea. It's Last of Us. We're going to move in that direction, as opposed to the Jack and Dax to keep following down that sort of line.
Mm.
And I think, as far as I'm aware, they're big enough and successful enough to where they don't really get communicated to. And I think Sony in general,
I do think
with their
Sony in general are
studios,
okay. Yeah.
tend to be pretty. Uh, they tend to let their studios
From
sort
what
of
we
make.
know with like the Kojima stuff and
Yeah,
like I imagine like the David Cage stuff, even though I know they're not owned by Sony, but they were kind of like funded by like those games were funded by
yeah,
Sony. You know, like yeah, from what and like all the Sony Japan studio stuff, like yeah, from what we know, it does seem like
interesting.
Sony are kind of like yeah,
I
just do it.
think it might be changing slightly now.
I think it is. I think it is a lot.
I think because a lot of their leadership has changed at Sony over the
Mm.
past
But I also
PlayStation
think
3,
it's changing with Microsoft
past
as well.
3 years. Yeah, but
Like
I don't
in the
know.
other way, like I think Microsoft used to be very, because from what I know of Microsoft specifically, with what they did with the Japanese teams and buying in Japanese games back on the Xbox 360, they were very hands on with saying, no, this needs to be done. No, you need to do this. You need to do that.
Yeah,
This needs to be in it. Whereas now it seems like they bought up a fuckload of studios and they're kind of like, oh hey, do what you want. Like a lot of the studios have said Microsoft has said do what you want, right?
yeah,
Whereas
but yeah,
PlayStation does seem
I
to
would
be a
be
bit like
interested to see how that ends
make a
up.
new The Last of Us.
I I don't see, this is the thing. I still don't think Naughty Dog have ever been told to make a new Last of Us,
This
but
The Last of Us remake thing, I don't know.
that wasn't even Naughty Dog.
Who's making it? Bluepoint?
Just no, some other random studio that
Oh,
was
so yeah,
thought
maybe
that,
Naughty Dog isn't being
and
told
then
to
they
make
tried
stuff.
to, and then it didn't go, it essentially wasn't going very well.
Mm.
They tried to originally make Uncharted 1. This was the story that I read. I can't remember.
Uh,
They were trying to remake Uncharted 1 originally. It was some random team that were formed, and they were trying to prove to Sony they could do it. So
mm.
they made a bunch of stuff from Uncharted 1 to show what Uncharted 1 would look like in this day and age, which is probably a good thing to do, because Uncharted
I mean,
1 is the
Uncharted
one that
One's fucking
does not
jank as hell.
live up.
Yeah,
It's
does
like,
not live up at all.
I think it's fine. I still think it's like a 7 out of 10, but I wouldn't go any further than
I thought it was
that.
like a 6 when it launched, so I don't know.
Yeah, I would have given it an 8 when it launched, and now a 7 probably. But
Really?
anyway, it didn't make a difference. It's still janky as all hell. But I'm
Mm.
looking past the jank to give it that number. Anyway,
Sure.
the thing is, and then it got, then they started thinking. Then I think Sony were like, okay, what would you do if you were to remake The Last of Us? And I think that's partly because Sony have got this Last of Us HBO TV show coming out.
Yeah.
They were like, what would you do if we were to do that? They started working on that. And Sony were like, hey, here's some of the people who made the original the original Last of Us, to sort of like advise or to help out, whatever. And
Mm.
then that has slowly evolved over time to the point where that studio is no longer working with Sony, and the Last of Us remake is just being made by Naughty Dog at this point.
Jesus Christ.
Um,
That's
which
complicated.
it is. But again, I don't think they've ever been told. I don't think they've ever been told what to do. I think it's just a
Mm.
case of they sort of get on with it, and like Sony trusts them enough to do what they want. Now, that's not to say, look, they might be a case of like, they might try and pitch something at some point, and Sony go nah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they would ever. Don't know if they ever have or ever would do that. I've certainly not heard
Yeah,
of that
maybe,
happen.
maybe.
But I
Although,
think,
like I
but
said, it does seem
I'd
like
be
it's
interested
changing
to
a bit.
see where, like, for example, Xbox goes with it, because I think Xbox, it's the studios they've bought. I don't think they can tell what to do,
Mm,
and because I don't think they make the sort of games that would work in a sort of corporately dictated structure. If you look at,
sure.
say, Double Fine,
Mm.
Double Fine don't exactly make what about if we put some microtransactions in here? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know if any of that kind of works. I think I think what Xbox has understood, and I think this is a huge credit to their leadership changes, in the same way that I think the way PlayStation seems to be going of late is probably I would say is a negative of their a down point on their leadership structure.
yeah. Mm.
But because I just think what they're doing now is not as good. But anyway, uh, the idea, like, I think they've realized that, like, look, they have the Halo team, they have the Gears of War team, they have the Forza team, they have the teams who they can just rely on to produce the same thing over and over again, and just do
Yeah.
whatever they want, sort of thing. And I think what they realized is that, if they want to make a platform like Game Pass succeed, which is obviously what they've put all of their eggs
Yeah,
into,
that's it, yeah.
they need to have studios who are making interesting stuff consistently. And as much as you could go and pay the Disco Elysium people to put Disco Elysium on your service, or you go and pay whoever, as much as you go and pay Double Fine to put Double Fine games on your service, it's probably more financially viable for you to just buy Double Fine and then just let Double Fine continue to be Double Fine,
Mm.
but you have the knowledge that A, they'll consistently create interesting things to put on your service that is different to what everyone else is doing,
Yeah.
and B, you don't have to keep paying them individually for each individual product, because you suspect that would be a lot more money. It's the equivalent to buying a season ticket for West Ham, as opposed to buying an individual ticket for every game to go and see West Ham.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of, like, financially, I suspect it makes sense, and also they make money from actually just selling those games as well as just Game Pass in general.
Mm.
So I'll be to see where that goes, because they've bought people like Double Fine, like the what's the studio called? The people who did Senua's Sacrifice.
Yeah.
What are they called
Ninja
again?
Theory.
Ninja Theory. Like, they've bought people like that, which just don't work within the I don't think they. What is their USP
Yeah.
is it wouldn't work inside a structure where the higher ups at Xbox go, what if you make a Banjo Kazooie game? You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like, I think I'll be interested to see where that ends up playing out, because I think for them, for those studios, I think it will work perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think you'll still probably see Xbox Control have some sort of overlording control on 343, on
Sure, yeah, of course, of
whatever,
course.
like this studio called The Initiative. That's really interesting to me. I think that's what they're
Mm.
called. The ones who are making this quadruple A game they keep talking about, that
Jesus.
is
Yeah.
supposed to be a perfect dark game, which is, like,
Oh,
such a weird
yeah,
amount of different things in one sentence that make no sense to me, yet
yeah.
it seems to exist. Like, whereas Sony, I think their leadership structure has changed a lot over the since the sort of very late PS4 to now.
Mm.
Their leadership structure is, like, completely changed, and I think you're seeing that in the sense of they now they now seem to want to be Marvel. They
Yes.
want to be the people who release the biggest budget,
Mm.
biggest corn flick type games possible consistently.
Mm.
Whereas I think, if up and from, like, the late PS4 back, basically forever, they were always sort of like,
Let's make an
no,
interesting game. Let's make a
let's
weird
be
game.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
I
okay. And
agree.
actually, biggest part of that was the closing of a lot of the Japan studio stuff.
That made me
And,
genuinely sad.
like like they've kept, like, Team Sobi, who made, like,
Astro Bot.
Astro stuff.
Yeah.
That's obviously still exists, but,
But Astro
like, the
Bot.
rest of them sort of, like, going down and getting shut. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
It genuinely is sad, like, because a lot of my favorite games that PlayStation have ever made are from, like, that Japan studio specifically. Like all of the like, I don't play like, and it's weird, but I don't play all the big blockbuster Sony games. I just don't, like, I don't care for them. Like, I'll maybe give them a go, but, like, the games that I genuinely care about from PlayStation or Sony are the weird, I like the fucking weird ones, you know. Like one of my favorite games is Guitar Man, that just comes from the Japan studio.
Yeah.
Like Parappa just comes from the Japan studio. Ape Escape just comes from the Japan studio. You know, like all the Team Ico stuff, like basically also came from the Japan studio, right?
Yep.
Like them just going, nah, fuck it, we're not doing weird Japanese games anymore. We're just doing Spider-Man: The Last of Us. I'm like, oh no, I don't think I want a
And look,
PlayStation
I
anymore.
love that Spider-Man game, the first one
Sure, yeah.
specifically. Miles Morales is great as well, but that
Mm,
first Spider-Man game is really good. Like, oh my god, is it good? But
mm.
at the same time, they've then, and like Insomniac again are interesting because
Yeah,
Insomniac have
Insomniac
made,
is huge.
they went on to make, like, they made Spider-Man, and then since then they've
They're
done Miles
making
Morales, they've done
Wolverine.
they've done Ratchet and Clank, and now they're making Wolverine.
Mm,
Like, so they're still doing stuff that's kind of like that Wolverine game can't play like the Spider-Man game for several reasons. Maybe they'll try to just like recreate a formula of here's an open world game that you're running about in, but again, or maybe you just give Wolverine a motorbike and that's how he gets around a city or whatever. But at the same time, like I can't imagine that working in the exact same way as the Spider-Man game, but
no,
it's still like it's still like the biggest game they could make. And I know in the meantime they made Ratchet and Clank, which is obviously a very, very different experience. But
of course.
yeah, it's just I don't know. There's a weird aura about PlayStation at the moment. And like don't get me wrong, because I'm the opposite of you. Well, not the opposite, because I also enjoy
Yeah,
the puppeteer or whatever.
yeah,
Random
yeah.
fucking I can't remember what it's called, but the one with the rain. Like I also enjoy that random stuff, but like um I do enjoy the big blockbuster stuff, but
Mm.
it doesn't it's not as interesting,
I don't think that's. I
which I
think
think
that's
is a
not the
massive shame.
special. I think that's not what's special about PlayStation. Like, I think, yeah, okay, like the stuff that they put out in the big shit. So like going, oh hey, Metal Gear Solid, and I know these aren't like Sony stuff, but like the big PlayStation games, like from back in the day before like PlayStation 4 or whatever, like Final Fantasy 7 and Metal Gear Solid, and like these massive fucking games, and like yeah, fair play, they kind of want to, I guess, keep on having these massive games, and that's perfectly fine. Like the massive games, I guess, here are Bloodborne and like Spider Man, Uncharted, like the Naughty Dog shit. But like at the same time, they've gotten rid of Knack. No more Knack.
I mean, look, that's always a disgrace, but
You know, you know,
it's
like
just difficult. It's just it's a trend with everything as well. I don't want to just like I don't want to pin it just to PlayStation or even just to the
how
video game
come
industry. It's a trend with
that's upon.
literally everything.
Yeah, it is.
Everything
It
is going
is.
in
It is. Yeah.
this way, and it's you know I
Loco
don't like
Roco.
I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. I feel like, and that's one of the things I just think it's a big compliment to. I think it's just a huge compliment to Xbox and what they've done, that
Mm.
they've taken that they seem to be buying those teams that are making interesting stuff
But I think
and then just
that's
allowing them to make the interesting
I
stuff.
think
I think
that's the
that's a
selling point
huge,
of the
huge
Game
compliment.
Pass, though. I don't think the big
I think it's a
blockbuster
selling
games are
point
that
to
much a
us.
selling point of the. Well, yeah, maybe to us, but I think the Game Pass particularly.
I think to the general public, I think the selling point is probably the big blockbuster games. But I think that's the smart thing Xbox have done is they have
Hmm.
the studios they can rely to
Well, they do.
create the
They
big
can do
blockbuster
both.
things.
They can do both. Yeah, it's not a.
Yeah.
But like, as much as I think, like people are gonna go buy Halo or whatever, maybe. Um, like Halo's not the
Halo's
reason why
Halo's
people go and buy Game Pass, even though Halo will be on Game Pass. People
again,
will get Game
I
Pass for
disagree,
all sorts of reasons.
but it's not the only reason people buy Game Pass.
Sure. I mean, like
But I do disagree.
Minecraft's on Game Pass, for example, and Minecraft's the big one, right? But
I think Minecraft is a relatively small one.
Minecraft's the big one.
No,
I
not
mean,
for
it's
Game
small
Pass
because
sales.
everyone has Game Pass, but everyone has Minecraft, right? But like, it's the big
Right.
game.
It's a big yeah, it's the big game, but I don't think and I think it's the big game, but I don't think it's the reason people get Game Pass.
No,
But I
no,
think it's a notable absence on Game Pass if it wasn't there.
sure. But I also don't think people are buying Game Pass for Forza.
See, I think they would buy it for Forza.
Do you think?
Yeah, in fact, I know people have got it for Forza. But this is what I'm saying. I
Really?
think from our perspective, we wouldn't.
Mm.
To be fair, I might have because I do like Forza Horizon 4, and I'm very
Yeah,
excited for Forza Horizon 5 next week. But I think from our perspective, we wouldn't think like that.
maybe.
But I think if you're talking about just Joe Blow,
Mm.
as I've just decided he's called, and
Yeah.
he's wandering down the street,
Mm.
and he likes his flipping Halos, he likes his
He
FIFAs,
likes FIFA. He can
he
get
likes
FIFA
his
on Game Pass.
Forza.
Yeah.
You can. That's the stuff. Those are the things that will sell him on Game
And
Pass.
that's saving him money as
I
well, I
know
guess,
people.
because
I
he
know
doesn't need to buy
people.
FIFA
I know a
anymore.
significant amount of people, for example,
Mm.
who had EA Play
Yeah.
because FIFA was on there.
Yeah, and now they'll have Game
And E-
Pass.
and again, why the hell would you get EA Play?
FIFA.
You know what I mean? And the
Do you
reason
get
they got it
FIFA
is
for
because
free on Play?
after like 6 months, it goes on there for free. But
Oh.
the important thing, and this is again the important thing, they got it for the first week. You have it on there for free before a week it comes out. You can play it for 10 hours on Game Pass. Oh, sorry, on EA Play, you can play the new FIFA for 10 hours, and it starts a week before FIFA comes out. And the amount of people I knew who would get it specifically for that, I knew people who would get a EA Play just for FIFA, but in the 6 months before the new FIFA is out on EA Play, they would have the new FIFA, they would buy it, and then they would go into the shop, sell it when
Yeah.
it was out
On
on EA
EA
Play,
Play,
and then
yeah.
buy it, and then they're spending less money on it overall. And I think like
Yeah, I guess so.
those big games are the big movers for Game Pass.
Mm.
Because if you say to someone, again, if you say to just the average guy who plays Halo whenever it comes out, they didn't think Halo 5 was bad, for example.
Yeah.
They really enjoyed it or whatever, the last Guardians, whichever one that was. I think it was.
Whichever, yeah, I think whatever. I don't, yeah.
But like, if you're saying to that guy, oh
Hey,
yeah,
you can
you
get
can
the new
get Halo,
Halo for a tenner.
you can get Halo, or you can get it for a tenner.
Yeah.
Then they're obviously on the Netflix of games. Then they're obviously going to go and do that. I think
Right,
those
yeah.
are huge movers.
Yeah.
I think they're more bigger movers than anything Double Fine will ever make, for example.
Oh, sure. But I
for me
think to
and
a lot of
you,
video game play, I think a lot of people who play games, specifically like for a lot of play a lot of games. The idea is that Game Pass has a lot of games, right? Like that's why I would be on it, not necessarily because they have big games. Although, like, you know, I can go through here and pick out like the big games that I would want to play that were on Game Pass and be grateful, or even the games I wouldn't, because as we've spoken at the start of this, I am a fucking maniac, and so I will play games that are just coming out because I'm interested, you know, because I'm a fucking maniac. Like Football Manager, that's not fucking big for anyone, is it? I mean, it's big for a few people, but like that's not a big game.
I think it's big,
but it's fucking big for Game Pass, right?
I think Football Manager is huge amongst its, but I think Football Manager will never
It's
outgrow
very
its own
niche.
audience.
It's very niche.
Although to be fair, listen, you got into Football Manager for a hot second last season.
There we go.
So it does show that there is some sort of growth there, but at the same time, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't count me as growth. I'm a as we've mentioned, a fucking maniac.
Yeah.
I don't count as growth. I'll play anything if you put it in front of me just to give it a go. Like it could have been Football Manager. It could have been Ride to Hell Retribution, and I would have been as equally likely to give it a shot.
Yeah, but Ride to Hell Retribution is good, but in its own stupid way. I'm talking about, like, you know, you're not going to play Gran Turismo Sport.
Like if Gran Turismo Sport came out on Game Pass, I would play Gran Turismo Sport.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to buy a copy of Gran Turismo Sport.
No, but I'm not going to buy a copy of Football Manager.
How cheap would Gran Turismo Sport be for you to take a punt on it?
Like, let's say it's available on what for? Wow.
So you're buying a retail copy or a downloadable copy. Either way, it's not on Game Pass or a Game Pass like system.
It's on. Let's say it's on PC. It's because that's the only thing I have at the moment, and I can't.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I then can't trade it back in.
That's what I mean. Well, sure. Let's say you can't. Give me two figures. One for where you can trade it in. One for when you can't.
Like so. Let's say I don't know, because I've never bought it, so I just probably wouldn't. Like I wouldn't have the interest.
So you wouldn't try anything because.
Well, no. If it cost me like 15 quid, for example, I probably wouldn't.
Driver?
No. I wouldn't go out and buy Driver. Like regardless of how much. Well, maybe if the brand new Gran Turismo game was a quid, I'd buy it. But like, I wouldn't. Like I just wouldn't. But like it being on Game Pass, I would. I'd give it a go. Why not? It's on Game Pass. But it's not a selling point for it being. I mean, the reason I don't know what the selling point for me on Game Pass would be, because quite frankly, if it wasn't for this, I probably wouldn't have got Game Pass originally. You know?
Yeah, I was very pro it, and you two were.
I
I think I drove it. I was like, and
yeah
if we get if because I was like, we should be playing Sea of Thieves.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
we should
still
be
think we
playing
should
this
have
stuff.
tried Grounded.
Hmm.
And then I was like, and Game Pass seems to be the most logical way of doing this. Why
Hmm.
aren't we doing this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you make that argument and fair play. Like I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll get Game Pass. Um, and like I've never not had Game Pass now. Like it has just been a casual thing that has gone out of my account every month, and I use it. I'm not gonna say I use it every day because I don't use it every day because I have other things that I do. But like most of the games that I play are from Game Pass now. You know, like unless something really interesting comes out on Epic, um, that's free, I will probably just get that game on Epic anyway and then not play it unless it's super interesting, and then I will play it. But like all of these games that have come out on Epic over the last few days, I would never have bought, but I'm playing because they're on Epic. Not Epic, so fucking Game Pass. Sorry, you know. So
I
like,
mean, Forza Horizon's probably a great shout. You're
yeah,
going to play Forza
I'm
Horizon next week, and yet you
yeah,
never would have touched it
I'm
up.
definitely going to play Forza Horizon next week. I would never have touched it. I wouldn't have touched Football Manager if it wasn't, but I'm going to play Football Manager next week as well. You know,
What a statement! What an insane
it's a
statement
weird
for
one.
Adam Hurd to be saying in the year of our Lord 2021.
Exactly right. I never would have played Age of Empires 4, but we streamed Age of Empires 4. I
How
probably
was it, by
never.
the way?
I don't think I don't think I have the knowledge to tell you how it was. I'll be honest with you. Like in a professional capacity, I definitely enjoyed what I played, but I don't think I have the knowledge of A, the franchise, or B, the genre to tell you whether or not it was good or not. You know, I just don't know. Like I played like 2 hours of the game and I enjoyed what I played. Um, but like I couldn't tell you if it was good. I just couldn't. Just not know. It's so out there for me. Like I never would have played it. I've forgotten cities
Okay.
on there. I need to play
Alright,
Forgotten City, but
here's what I'll say. Did you enjoy it?
yeah, 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 I enjoyed it. Yeah,
Okay.
I was a bit. So I'll say I was reluctant at first. I was a bit like, mostly because there's a 45-minute tutorial. Um,
Sure, yeah, of course.
but towards the end of the 2 hours that we were streaming it for, and we were doing the campaign stuff, I had grown to appreciate a lot of the stuff that the game was doing, and I'd grown to enjoy like the stupid freedom of the strategy of the game. Um, like I genuinely thought, okay, this is fun. This is a fun game.
Yeah.
There's some really cool shit that it does in terms of like, so the campaign basically tries to tell you the history of the actual, real life history stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So we started off, it was the Battle of Hastings and then the Battle of York after, with the two bits of scenarios that we did within the same period of history. And it showed a lot of real life photos and videos of these places, but then they also like interspersed CGI soldiers and made it look like a war was happening in York Town Centre or whatever. It was, and then mentioned like what was happening and the history behind it and shit like that. And I found that genuinely interesting, and I found the strategy of the game fun once you're into it, but I found it difficult to sort of. There's a high ceiling. There's a high ceiling to get into it. I think like
Yeah,
a
okay. That's
very high ceiling. But yeah, I would never have touched it. And I've downloaded Unpacking because I really want to play it, and then also I really want to interview the person who made Unpacking for the channel. Because it's kind of what people are talking about at the moment. I think it would be interesting. I would never have bought Back for Blood. I would never have paid Back for Blood. Never,
yeah.
never,
Yeah.
not once, not one point of me would have gone. Yeah, I'm gonna buy Back for Blood today. You know, oh my, I'm looking through my. There are games on Game Pass I've downloaded that I really want to play that I haven't. Um, I never would have played Football Manager. I never would have played Hades. Like never would have played Hades if it wasn't
That's an
for this.
interesting one to me, but I understand why.
I've seen people talk about it and I missed it and I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. I probably never would have played Minecraft if it wasn't for a game, but I've played it before, but I just probably wouldn't bother. Like I would never own a copy of Minecraft. You know?
Here's something I would say. But would you play Minecraft off stream?
Yeah, potentially.
Interesting.
Potentially. It depends. I don't know. I don't know if I have the creativity for it. I don't know if I have the Like I definitely have the creativity for it. It's not a word that I mean, but something about it that I'm like. It's like how I play Skyrim, in that I like the adventure and I like the sort of wandering around and I like the kind of peacefulness of it. Like I know, and Louis said during the stream, like Minecraft and Skyrim are not similar games in any fashion, but like I actually play them in very similar ways in that I enjoy walking around the world, and like I felt
Yeah,
like I was playing Skyrim at some point in time. Like I enjoy just sort of like putting on the chill music, walking around the world, maybe seeing some stuff, maybe occasionally building a house in the woods or whatever, just sort of chill. I kind of get it as chill vibes.
I think that's the point of that game though, is the freedom of it. I think you
Mm,
can play. I think what and like at first when I first started playing it in 2011,
mm,
around that time when it first came out, when it was in alpha, and I was playing it like really really early.
yeah.
Um, the creativity and the openness of it was the kind of point of it. Whereas I think now with everything they've put into it, it's a case of you can play it sort of however you want.
Mm,
So you can, if you're like you, who maybe like you want to go and have a sort of adventure, you can have that adventure. You
mm.
can go and find some random mine system, or try and like do whatever you want. Whereas as opposed to someone else who might be just like, right,
I want
I'm
to
gonna
build
build
a big
a one for
statue.
one replica of your mum.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Whereas, like, I think the first thing I ever did in Minecraft was dig down. Like, not
yeah,
on stream or anything, but like when I first played Minecraft ages ago, I think the first thing I ever did was, oh, I'm just gonna go down and see what's there,
mm.
and like have like that little underground adventure, I guess. Before being told, no, that's wrong. That's not the way you play Minecraft. I'm like, well, wait, God damn it. Whereas now, like, I think that's sort of what we did then. Like at the end of the stream as well, like Louis was building his little house, and I built a little like cabin on a mountaintop in the woods, and then thought, fuck it, I'm gonna dig down. I'm gonna see what's underneath this shit.
Yeah.
You know, what's in this
I would
mountain? I'm
say
gonna
never
hollow them
never
out.
dig directly down
I
in a straight line, because you will just get yourself
I
stuck and
mean,
you're
yeah,
more likely to die than you are to do anything
yeah.
else. But
I
digging
did
down
I
in
did a
general,
circle. I did
go
a
hog wild.
circle. I was doing a circular motion through the mountain that I'd built my house in.
Nice, nice,
Mm,
nice. I back that. But see that I back.
mm.
But digging directly down is just going to
Oh yeah,
cause you
yeah, yeah,
problems.
of course,
Because obviously, if all of a sudden there's a cave and you dig from the roof of the cave, you're dropping down and you're dying.
yeah.
Or you get stuck in a hole and you can't dig any further, and then you can't get back out because it's a straight line. so, so you have no choice but to die.
You got to
But
dig
outside of
like
that,
diagonally up or
dig
something. I
down.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just dig down. Go
Mm,
wild. Just do whatever you want.
why
You
not?
know.
Why not? Huh. So I think that's the end of our the podcast today, pretty much. Thank you everyone who came by and listened. Thank you for all of the stuff. We've got some real cool and interesting stuff happening on YouTube's. I know I say this like every week, but I genuinely think we've got a lot of really cool stuff planned, a lot of really cool stuff coming. Not just stuff like Let's Plays and stuff, not just interviews and stuff as well. I recently made a drink for the YouTube channel for a video that went well. Didn't go well. So that's some new content coming and stuff as well. I don't know. I do think our YouTube channel. I think we've got some stuff coming. I don't know if you feel the same, but we've got some cool stuff coming.
It's getting there.
It's getting there.
We're at the stage where we have a lot going on now.
We do have a lot going on. But yeah, other than that, you can always give us a follow on Twitch, on YouTube, bloody anywhere. Basically, just type in sometimes video games, and you'll probably find us. Although, I do admit that it is an awkward name.
Oh, it's a terrible name, but at the same time, we're here now.
For SEO, it's a terrible name, but it's
Yeah.
working. It's working, I think.
Well, we're at the stage now where if you type it into Google, we do come up.
Do we?
As opposed to, for a long time there was like articles that would be like, well, sometimes in the video game industry, blah blah blah, or whatever, and like that was what would come up. Now it's actually our name, so
See, the SEO is not bad once we get big.
which is maybe the worst argument for a name I've ever heard.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
but the fact that when you type it in, we come up
Mm.
now
Is it
is a
on?
large.
Is that on thingy
uh,
mode as well?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, 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 on
let
incognito. It's
me
not the cookies. I've checked.
let me go to
It's
let
not
me go
even
to
the
Google.
cookies.
Let me
Do
go to
it now.
Google.
Check
I'm
it.
going to
Pull it
do it.
up. Pull up. If you're listening to this, pull up Google.
Live action.
Go incognito, obviously, so you
Mm.
get rid of the cookies, so it's not knowing what you want. You type it in, bang, it will come up.
Sometimes video games. Oh, fuck our Twitter.
There you go.
I
Our
literally type
Twitter.
sometimes video Twitter, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, the website. We have a website. You can go to sometimesvideogames.co.uk. Instagram, which we've never used. Listen Notes. I don't know what that is. And also
Yeah, no,
Spotify is at the bottom of that front page. That's super
there you go.
interesting. There we go.
That's listen. Is the
That's on
SEO
incognito
terrible?
mode.
Yes, but have
But is
we
it
finally
working?
broke after a year and a half? We've
Mm,
finally broken through to where if you type in our name, we do actually appear.
which is which
Which,
is sick.
yeah,
I am enjoying that.
yeah, it's yeah, probably an example of why we should have changed it a long time ago. But we're at the stage now where there's no
It's
we
there
actually
now. It's there now. It's
yeah.
done. Done and done. I like the name. Like for SEO, it's shit, but I like the name.
I go through phases with it.
I've come to the conclusion that I like the name Sometimes Video Games because I feel like we are all more than video games, and I feel like nobody else in the world. I don't think any other website does that. Even though we aren't more than video games at the moment, I feel like no video game website or account in the world is just like fuck it, I'm more than video games. We're lots of different things, and I think this podcast is the prime example of us being more than video games.
I think this podcast is a prime example of us not preparing anything to talk about beforehand. But we can we can twist it that way if you want.
Sure,
We
sure.
can twist
That's
it.
this is me twisting myself into thinking that I actually quite like the name. Either way.
I'm not. I don't think it's. I'm not saying it's a bad. Well, no. I'm just like. No. I'm
We're
just
just
saying it
gonna
is what it
vibe
is.
it. I'm just gonna. It's here. It's done. We can't do anything about it now, unless we want to start again from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that. Thank you very much, everyone who's been is popping by. Listen, you can always subscribe, like, comment. I guess that's the wrong angle, but sure. We will be live tomorrow, Sunday night on Twitch, for some Jackbox, I believe.
At 8:30, is
8:30,
it?
yeah, 8:30. So come play some Jackbox with us. We love having more and more people pop up in those Jackbox streams and have a good time with you guys. So it's yeah, I think we enjoy them. And then we'll also be live on Monday and Tuesday on Twitch at 7:30 ish. We've also got a bunch of stuff coming out on the YouTube channel. Go watch that stuff. The last thing on that, I think, maybe my interview with the Spaceboat developer, which is actually a really cool interview. I really enjoyed that interview. I put a lot into it. I think there was a lot of really interesting shit said. So if you're especially interested in something about the monetization of video games, go do that. Oh no, the last thing up there was the Night in the Woods book club. Just
Yeah,
another
we've
thing
got
we're doing.
just in case you don't know, we've got Night in the Woods book club. We do a book
Mm,
club every month. The Night in the Woods episode is up now.
it is.
We have Adam's amazing interview with
Oh,
the
thank you.
Space Boat developer, which talks about Spaceboat as a game, but also more widely as an industry and what the influences are in that. And I think that's super interesting. You should definitely go listen to it. Also, what his top three fruits are, which is more important to me.
Did you watch the top three fruits?
Do you know what the worst thing is? It's opening my tabs right now. I'm
Oh my
looking
god.
directly at it. I have not clicked on it.
Oh
You
my god.
told me, and the worst thing is, you told me what the fruits are,
Yeah.
and I'd forgotten about it. So I'm gonna get to listen
You're
to
gonna have
it
to listen
fresh
to it
again.
again. We also put all our
Again,
reactions up on there. Our podcast goes up on YouTube. We're also having some shorts putting on there, and we've got some Let's Play stuff a coming.
a lot. Jesus Christ.
A coming. I didn't realize that
We've got
that was
15
so many
plus
episodes.
episodes in the bank
I didn't realize
ready.
that was so many episodes. I'll be honest with you. I'm
There's
looking at it now. I
so
was like, oh
many.
shit, there are a lot of these episodes. Fuck.
There's more, like there's 4 in drafts on the YouTube at the moment backlog that I
Yeah.
haven't done for. But then there's also, which were the ones last night that I fell asleep to. But then there's also That's the entirety of that game finished.
Mm,
But then we also have at least another 4 of another game to come, and
yeah.
then at least another 4 on top of that of another game. So I think we've got
And I think a game in the waiting as well. So we got stuff. I'm just excited to tell you there's stuff coming. Um, either way, thank you very much everyone for listening, watching, whatever it is that you're doing. And we'll see you next week.
See you later.
Bye.